Okay, Zoom says we are live. For those watching the live feed or the recording, hang on for a minute while we do a little housekeeping. Today is May 19th, 2021. This is the Community Committee or CommComm meeting for the Permissionless Software Foundation. I'm going to post a link into the PSF channel. Okay, well, this is going to be a short meeting, and there's just a couple of us. Let's go ahead and do a quick round of introductions. My name is Chris Troutner. I helped found the PSF Foundation, or the Permissionless Software Foundation, PSF for short, with several people. David Allen could not be here today. He is a regular attendee, and yeah, I guess that's enough of an intro for me. Go ahead and introduce yourself there, Aaron.
Yeah, my name is Aaron Shoemaker. I am an entrepreneur, and I do 360, 3D video stuff, and I got interested in the token, so I came over to the PSF, and I've been learning a lot from Chris here. So,
yeah, you've been making some fast progress. All right, well, with that, I'm going to share my screen and we'll just go over the agenda real quickly. There's not much to cover, and with just the two of us, this isn't really, a good platform for feedback. So I'm hoping that more members will watch this recording and then come to our Telegram chat room and continue this conversation. But just a few things that I wanted to throw out there to the community is we've got two committee meetings. And actually, let me just pull up the blog post so that anybody who watches this can visually see how our organization is structured. So I'm on psfoundation.cash/blog, and Healthy Bitcoin is the blog entry that reflects our current architecture. So it's about as pyramid shaped as a pancake. Think of a pancake with a Hershey kiss on top. That's kind of the shape of our structure. So at the tippity top here, oh, looks like Daniel's coming in. At the tippity top here is the token holders, the PSF. This is the VIP channel on Telegram. You have to have a certain amount of PSF tokens in order to join it. They're ultimately who these two committees are answer to. And so there's the CommComm committee, which is this one. Hey, Daniel, welcome.
Hi,
hey, Daniel.
Sorry for being late. I was trying to get better connection.
Yeah, no worries. I'm glad you joined. We're just getting started. I'm just giving kind of a brief overview of how our organization is structured. Sure. But basically, so to get back to this graph, we've got two main committees, and they are answerable to the VIP members. This is the CommComm, which handles community and sort of culture, and then there's the TSC, or the Technical Steering Committee. And then as we grow, the idea is that we spin off work groups to focus on specific things, like say NFTs, or the Avalanche blockchain, or SLP tokens. Like if there is something that we really want to take on, these committees would then spin off working groups. And sort of this is how our communication structure is supposed to shape up. So with that in mind, what I wanted to cover is that I'm currently chairing both of the committees, and I'd love for someone to take over the responsibility of chairing this community committee meeting, which those responsibilities would just basically be, showing up every other Wednesday for the meeting and sort of putting the agenda together, and just doing what I do, which is just sending out a couple of reminders and updating the agenda. So not looking for volunteers right now, but think about it. Let's have this discussion in the Telegram channel. I have a feeling maybe David Allen might want to take on this responsibility, or somebody else if he's too busy with other things. And then another another thing that we've been trying to get going here is these private VIP meetings and financial reports. So they're not really financial reports in the conventional sense of the term. It's more just about metrics. Like I'm a big believer that what you measure is what you manage. And so if you don't have metrics to follow, then you can't really manage there's nothing to manage. And so we produce these monthly reports just to show like token burns and token purchases of the PSF token, because that's tied to our financial health as a community, as well as other statistics like the number of downloads of the BCHJS library and the number of API requests that's hitting the full stack.cache servers, because that's also indicative of growth. Those numbers should all kind of trend up if we're growing. And so I have been hoping to have a private VIP meeting every month to sort of check in on that top of the pyramid there, all the people in the VIP room, as well as provide sort of as a value add to people who make the effort to become economic actors and join that VIP room, just sort of a monthly report of where we're at financially and how it compares to previous months. This is something that has fallen by the wayside, mostly just because of our growth. The full stack.cache servers have grown, I think, by at least 50% in the last month. So we're growing like a weed. And so that has become the priority. And so I think it's a very prudent decision. But anyways, I'm just throwing this out there for the community. Anybody who wants to kind of take these on in terms of preparing this financial report and organizing a meeting of the VIP members, that would be a great thing for me to delegate and offload. If it should probably go to one of the members who are in the VIP meeting room to do that. And in terms of creating the financial report, it's all public data, and I have a private video that I can share on the software that you run to basically collect all the numbers that goes into that report. Do you guys have any feedback on that before I move on? It's really just, it's more food for thought than an actual discussion thing that I'm looking for feedback on at this point.
Yeah, I think you're right on. Those things need to be implemented, and it does seem like things have gone really fast, and so it's a good time to get a handle on it.
Right on. I am happy that we've got, like we've got the process in place. Like we understand how to generate a financial report. We understand, how to figure out who's in the VIP room and how to communicate with them. So all those, the sort of the rails are in place for that. It's just a matter of the doing at this point. So I'm pretty happy with that we at least have the process in place. One final thing on the agenda before we just kind of open it up for a roundtable is I've had people in the community say like, man, I really wish I had a @psfoundation.cache email address. And that'd be nice. I wouldn't mind that either, but it's, I hate email servers. I hate setting up email servers. I hate even trying to set it up through a third-party system, because there's all the name settings and stuff. It's just something that I can't seem to prioritize. So that's another thing that I'm looking for someone from the community to sort of step up and own. Like we could create a new, my thoughts is to make it easy, we could create a separate domain that's just like, permissionlesssoftware.com or psfoundation.net or just something that is similar, but is like set up explicitly for community emails. It would be a nice perk is if you join the VIP room, you get your own PS Foundation email. So I'm also just throwing that up. It's another thing that I just can't seem to prioritize. But if someone in the community wants to take it on, I'd love to work with them. I think it would help us, have a more unified sense of community.
And how will that work? We will have to set up a server just for that.
Yeah, they're like, so Namecheap offers email hosting services, and I think they charge like $1 per user. So I don't know if I like the idea of tying it, like that's convenient, to have like a third party manage the server and be responsible for it. But it also means that like we got to pay $1 for every new user per month. So I don't like that. I would prefer if we had our own server that we could maintain. So yeah, I'm open to ideas. There's a couple different ways we could skin that cat.
Would that mean renting out or owning a server, or is there a way to do that in a decentralized fashion?
Well, so there is a software application called iRedMail, and it makes it really easy to set up a server. I mean, easy is a relative term because there's still a lot of fiddling, and you got to worry about your SSL certificates, and you got to do a bunch of jump through a bunch of hoops with your domain name registration stuff. But I've had one set up for a couple of years, and it's pretty clunky, but it works. And so that would be one way to do it. And then in terms of keeping it decentralized, one of the things, one of the improvements that I've had several people request with message.fullstack.cache was if you could get an email notification when someone sends you an end-to-end encrypted message with that platform. So that would be another, like, if we had an email server and like you got a VIP, if we gave email addresses out to people who join the VIP group, then it would be cool to tie that in with message.fullstack.cache so that people could get an email alert when they get an end-to-end encrypted message on that platform.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool. And I don't suppose you could store emails on IPFS. That would probably congest things too much, wouldn't it?
Well, like you can, but it's not technically email. Like the
Yeah, I know. It'd be like a link, essentially.
Right. So that's the idea, is like, but once you have sort of a, what do you call that, like a tag or a hook, once you have the hook into the email system, then you can do all sorts of things with it, because then you can forward the email to whatever email you want it to be. We could have it go the other way, where like you could email like a specific address that would then take that content and convert it and send it to a Bitcoin Cash address using the messaging system we developed on message.fullstack.cache. So yeah, if we had an email server, and this is where it would really break down if we had a hosted service. These are the kinds of like cool hacks that we'd really want our own server for. But yeah, food for thought. I think we should just let this idea simmer. It's just something I'd like to do. I just can't seem to prioritize. And so as our community grows, hopefully somebody with the time and the skill set can step up and take this on.
Right on.
All right, and that's the agenda. Short and sweet today. I want to give you guys a couple shout outs. And Daniel, you're doing amazing work as always. And Aaron, you've been doing some fantastic work with exploring mutable data attached to SLP tokens, which would solve this sort of icon. It's funny, the icon thing, I guess it's the bull market, which might be cooling off right now, but there seems to be an influx.
It seems like a big cool off last night.
Yeah. Seems like a big influx of people creating tokens and wanting a solution for adding a token to their icon, which is totally normal. And it takes a little digging to like realize that there's no standard, and there's only a couple options, and neither one of them are very optimal for that. So, but there does seem to be an increased pressure on that for token icons. But then Aaron, you and I have talked about how much more this specification for creating mutable data is, like how you could track like video game characters or track all sorts of different changing data over time with the token.
Yeah,
using this.
We even talked about tracking property this way. So like Daniel, we were talking about how you could create an NFT token that has all the information that you want to be immutable, like how big is the house, how many acres is the lot, and all that information, and then use the mutable data to track ownership. So this is another way to basically do title deeds.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think as far as the NFT stuff goes, creating the mutable data, and also we've been talking about, I don't know if you've had time to think about what we kind of discussed on Sunday, Chris, on the locking up NFTs and using them for streaming and stuff like that. I think both of those use cases give a lot of utility to NFTs that aren't there right now. Because oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was, yeah, you're right. And actually, there are a couple things that just crossed my mind. I should probably save this for the technical steering committee, but I'll give a little teaser in that Stoyan and Daniel have both pushed some updates around NFTs. So you can now, using BCH API and BCH.js through fullstack.cache, if you have an NFT, you can query the group token that created that NFT. Or if you have a group token, you can query all the child NFTs created from that group token, which is it's all about the sort of the network of how these tokens and the relationship between tokens. That's what this really appeals to. And so these ideas that we've discussed about, just these other NFT, other things that NFTs can be used for. It furthers those possibilities. We now have some new infrastructure to quickly and easily explore these relationships that we didn't have before.
Well, that makes it a really so if what they just developed, that's awesome. And that means that if we can kind of lock these, like we're talking about, and say you're dealing with pieces of code, right? And you want somebody to pay you for that piece of code to use, well, now you can query the child tokens and see which one didn't pay you. And then you can say, all right, we're going to shut this off until you make restitution for not paying us for what you're using. That's just one idea I can see out of that. So that's really cool.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or the ability to, issue a group token for a person, and then, that way you could issue multiple NFTs. So like here's your NFT, which, say gives you access to something, and then that NFT can be revoked. And then when they do something, you can issue a new NFT, but then on the blockchain and using these calls, there's a clear path of the relationship between tokens.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think there's a lot of use cases there. Maybe even the ticket use case that everybody talks about, you're creating NFT tickets, and then you can see which tickets got cashed in and which ones didn't. How did you sell? That sort of thing. So.
Yeah. So like if you would create, so for people who are unfamiliar with this, if you wanted to sell, say, concert tickets, like say there's 100 concert tickets, well, you'd create one single group token, and then you would use that to generate the 100 NFTs. And that's a good situation for an NFT, because like, say, a front row seat is different than a back row seat. Like they're not fungible. The seats aren't all alike. There's definitely the ones up front are more valuable at a concert. And so that's an excellent example for NFT tokens as opposed to fungible tokens. And then in the SLP world, on Bitcoin Cash, you generate NFTs from a group token. And so being able to quickly and easily navigate the relationship between groups and NFT group tokens and NFT tokens, pretty helpful. Like, so exactly, like if you want to do analytics after the fact to see, how many tickets got sold, how many seats actually got sat in versus, seats that didn't get sat in. How many?
What was
of those,
the price of those seats?
Yeah. How are those seats sold on a secondary market? Were they traded?
Mm-hmm. Well, and then another use case I'm just thinking off the top of my head is I think that NFTs are really going to start to be used as like digital souvenirs, that sort of thing. So you could create, say, a tour across a certain area, say Germany, a tour of their castles, right? And you get an NFT every time you go to a castle. Well, if you're in charge of the tour, you could look up the child NFTs and be able to evaluate who got all the tokens. And if you got all the tokens, you get a specific NFT that's like, you did it all, you completed it, and it's just kind of a bragging rights type of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Daniel, you have been involved in that AVAX Cells game. Does that use NFTs or does it use fungible tokens? Oh, he might have frozen.
He's a statue right now.
You're kind of coming through. Hey.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't hear.
Oh,
You were asking me about the NFTs of AVAX.
yeah.
AVAX.
Yeah, you can go ahead and turn your video off if it'll help your bandwidth. But yeah, does it use does the game use NFTs or does it use fungible tokens?
Yeah, they use the ERC 721. Those are NFTs that are running on the C chain. It has it's similar, or I would say the same as the ones on the BCH, because you need a group and all the NFTs are shared, so it works the same way. So
Okay.
all the cells are NFTs that gets minted once the user buys one.
Okay. So they're uniquely minted. This is cool. So one of the things that we're going to have coming out soon is a command line wallet for working with tokens on the Avalanche blockchain. Of course, that's going to be on the X chain, and this is a 721 on the C chain of Avalanche. So it won't work quite as quickly with that. But yeah, now that I have my new computer, I'm excited to try that game out and play with it. So that's good. I just wasn't sure if they were using the NFTs. And so ERC 721 is the NFT standard on Ethereum. And so this game, AVAX Cells, is played on the C chain of Avalanche. So yeah, definitely something for you to play with, Aaron.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to check it out. I've been diving into the mutable token stuff, and I sent you over token last night. Were you able to follow the hash?
I was. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, that was fantastic.
I wanted to go through that to prove a use case. Now it's all about developing the software to make it so it's just a really easy thing for the end user. So
yeah. So I mean, we probably shouldn't be getting so deep into the weeds with the technical stuff, but that's what happens when David Allen doesn't.
Yeah, David's not
doesn't
here.
join to keep us from getting too technical. But since we've already gone down the rabbit trail,
what would David do?
What would David would just sit there quietly, probably. But for those of us who are interested, because NFTs are a hot topic, so anybody who's watching this and wants to sort of understand what we're talking about, because the PSF is a horizontal organization, like I said, it's mostly pancake shaped with like a Hershey kiss on top. So we're pretty much a horizontal organization. And so everyone is free to explore whatever is of interest to them, and NFTs are a hot topic, and we have several different people exploring them from different angles. And what Aaron's been focused on particularly is this PS002 SLP mutable data specification. And this should work in general for NFTs on Avalanche, both the X chain and C chain, as well as NFTs in Ethereum. I think they have a very similar specification for this, but if people want to go there, you can go to the Permissionless Software Foundation GitHub group, and then there's a specifications repo, and this mutable data here is the second specification, and it's poorly written. Aaron's been working through the poorly written spec to come up with a prototype, and he managed to manually create a functional prototype. And this solves a couple business problems. The main problem it solves is token icons. This is a way for wallets to automatically discover a token icon. And unlike the two ways of doing token icons today on the Bitcoin Cash chain for SLP tokens, when you set the token icon now with either of the two methods that exist now, you can't change it. It's permanent. You can't do a rebrand later and then change the artwork for your token icon down the road. And right now, there's no guarantee that the artwork will show up in all wallets. So this specification is a way to permissionlessly attach a token icon to your token, as well as update that token artwork down the road later, in a secure way that only the creator of the token can do, or people that they give the private key to. But it also is a much more flexible protocol beyond just token icons. This could be used to, say, track a video game character with an NFT whose statistics change over time. So it's a way of having state attached to a token, which is really important. Normally, up until this point in time, when you create a token, it's immutable. The data cannot change over time. It's fixed. And so if you want new data, you have to create a new token. But using this method, you can have changing data and have the token point to it. And then the wallet can automatically sort of discover this changing state.
To piggyback off of that, I was just talking to some gamers the other day that were saying they'd love to have a way to upgrade or work on weapons within games. And this would be one way to do that, where you could not only upgrade the weapon, but from any of those that played World of Warcraft, there was definitely a market to sell weapons and stuff. And it'd be really cool to sell a weapon that you developed, and made better. And then you can sell that. And then you almost get a return for the time that you invested in making that weapon. So that's kind of cool.
Well, it's really not fundamentally any different than artwork. Like an artist spends time in the artwork, developing over time, and then these NFTs are a way to sort of track the secondary market sales. So something that you said the other day just really rocked my world, which was this idea of tracking real estate, where like there's certain information about a piece of property that you want to be immutable. Like the size of the property is probably not going to change. Its geographic location definitely is not going to change. Just historical data that is a matter of history, and it is not going to change because it's already happened. That's all excellent data that could be captured at the time of the creation of the token, that you would not want to change. But then if it can point to this changing state of like, okay, well, now the owner's owned by this person, and then over time the ownership changes to that person, and then that person added some improvements to the property. So that's all mutable data that gets changed over time. And so that's I just thought that was such an excellent use case for both mutable and immutable data. And then to abstract that, I'm thinking a lot about artwork, because that seems to be the favorite sort of use case for NFTs. And I'm friends with several starving artists, and so like the actual like a high-res scan of say a physical object, a physical artwork, or even just purely digital artwork, like that's immutable. Like who created it, when it was created. This is information that should be immutable. Like that should go in there during the creation of the token. But then like, if the artwork changes hands, the new owner would probably want to get like a stamp of authenticity or register their data. And so the artist who created the token would have the private key to update that mutable data. That they probably would not pass that on to the buyer. That would probably always be retained by the artist. And so if the art sold in the secondary market, and the new owner wanted like a digital stamp of authenticity, they would go to the artist and say, hey, can you update the state to reflect that I purchased it? And that's a great opportunity for it's a win-win, because the new owner gets an official stamp of approval. The artist gets a chance to get a percentage of the sale. So yeah, I think that this is kind of the use case that everybody wanted to achieve with NFTs, but the tech wasn't really there, and now we're getting there.
Well, and another thing I think is going to develop is what I call trust merchants. So in a free market, you're going to have people that they make their living selling trust by verifying or vetting what the products and goods are what they say they are. So there may be a case where the artist says, hey, I don't want to handle this sort of thing, so I'm going to transfer this to a trust merchant, and this trust merchant basically makes their living being trusted. And if they prove to be unscrupulous, well, they lose all their business. That's
Yeah.
a completely different thing to where, like, we have versions of trust merchants nowadays, but because they can pay the state off or the media, they aren't necessarily as trusted as they should be. They can have a scandal and make it go away and you never hear about it. But in a more free market, I see that there will be a place for such things. And so an artist who maybe is not as tech savvy says, I'm going to transfer this off to this trust merchant. And then when you purchase, you'd go to the trust merchant to verify and say, yeah, you're the new owner, sort of thing.
Yeah, that's a really good idea, because in terms of the infrastructure required for a trust merchant, it's really no different than custodying Bitcoin. So
Mhm.
all of these banks that are ramping up to custody Bitcoin, they essentially have all the tools that they would need to custody a private key, which would be the only requirement for updating this mutable data. So they
Yeah.
could easily offer that service to update the state of an NFT as a service for artists.
Yeah. And I think that another thing we talked about was, say you're a musician and you're releasing a new single every month, and you send this NFT out and you use the mutable data for the new single, and you could have it in such a way that when you sell the token, if you bought the token initially, you'd have access to all the music. If you bought the token halfway through, you'd only have access to half of the music. And so this becomes an asset that like buying an original record. You want the original Rolling Stones eh, Let It Bleed album, first printing, so something like that, or Beatles Help mono first printing type of thing. So those early NFTs become actually more valuable on the market and become an asset, kind of like a comic book or an early album.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, see, that's an interesting thing where, like, when we're talking about physical objects, like a first edition or a signed first edition, or like a vinyl record, because they don't really make them anymore. Like, those things are so valuable, but if you do like a limited release now and then you do a limited release later, because they're digital, there's not really any qualitative difference. I
Mhm.
mean, it's all just in the narrative. The difference is just the story that you tell about it.
Yeah.
It's not like this is, like with a book, a first edition, like it's dusty and maybe the backing's cracked and it has, it has all these physical characteristics that make it unique.
Yeah.
So it's like it'll be really interesting to see how some of these qualities that we used to consider like unique and valuable, what ones translate into this digital world and what ones fail to translate into this digital world.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And um, so that, coupled with this idea that we've been talking about of being able to lock up an NFT so only the owner can have access to it, which I see the mutable stuff and the locking stuff to be hand in hand, and both those protocols will make NFTs more valuable. I've watched the video you sent from where Vitalik was talking about NFTs, and he's saying the two use cases right now is investment for the future and bragging rights. And I think that there needs to be more.
Mm-hmm.
These NFTs have to have utility, and if they don't have utility, there's no use case. Vitalik talks about something he calls legitimacy. And I agree, legitimacy is a good thing, but you can look at a bunch of rocks and I can look at a bunch of rocks and we can say those are legitimately rocks. Doesn't mean they have utility to us, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
legitimacy without utility is really becomes meaningless. So we need
Yeah.
both.
I'm glad you brought this up. So for people who are watching this and want to sort of understand the backstory, there was Bankless is a podcast. It's Ethereum focused podcast, and Vitalik was on there and talking about an article that he recently wrote on the concept of legitimacy and like what is it and how does it play a role in the crypto space. And I think one of the really, they didn't use this in the podcast, but one of the really good examples, I finally got to use Dash, the cryptocurrency, the other day because I was trying to buy some gift cards on Bitrefill, and they don't accept Bitcoin Cash. They only accept Dash. And you'll see this every once in a while. Like there's just like this hatred for Bitcoin Cash. And so
Really?
they'll just refuse to carry it. Yeah.
I've never
And
heard of that hatred.
yeah, exactly right. And so in my mind, Dash and Bitcoin Cash have pretty much equal utility if you're just using it to like buy a gift card. Like they do the same thing. Low transaction fees, they're fast. Um, and but the price of Dash is so much lower than Bitcoin Cash, or at least it historically has been. And I think the difference is legitimacy. Like really the only difference in my mind is that Bitcoin Cash is linked to the original Genesis block of Bitcoin. And whereas Dash started its own ledger, and in my mind, it's that difference is legitimate. Like they're legitimate tied to the original Genesis block, and that's attractive to people. And that's in my mind, like that is legitimacy applied. That's really the only two. Like as far as utility is concerned, I don't see any difference between the two.
Yeah.
And it's really just that concept of legitimacy, and that was Vitalik's argument, was that legitimacy is like this unseen force that most people don't think about, but it's actually incredibly powerful when you're talking about network effects, which is pretty much the only thing that matters in this space.
I would agree with that. I think that he's got a point that things do need to be legitimate. And my point earlier was not to say that he's wrong, but it is to say that I think they need both legitimacy and utility, because I can look at a lot of things that seem to be legitimate that don't have a lot of utility. And so those things tend to be fads that go away over time and don't stick around. And I mean, look at all the Instagram fads that have a lot of legitimacy, but very little utility. And so,
well, I think we're seeing this play out right now with NFTs, in that, like, I think most people would say that legitimate NFTs are on Ethereum. That's where the ERC 721 standard came from, and the ERC 20 standard came from. And then we can do the same thing on Cash, and they're actually a huge step up in utility, because it's mostly just the transaction fees, but also the flexibility. And then also Avalanche, they've got tokens and NFTs, but I think most people would view them as less legitimate, simply because it's newer and it hasn't withstood the test of time. And that's the idea, is like legitimacy is a very squishy concept. It's really going to depend on each individual person, but you can draw an aggregate across the network and probably actually quantify these effects of legitimacy if somebody really wanted to. So it's just an interesting concept.
I wrote a paper, and maybe that's kind of on the same lines. I sent it to you, but maybe you want me to revise it and post it. But one of the things that I didn't get into to it on this paper, but I've been working it up, where it's this idea that the incentive for theft of an object or a digital asset is equal to the utility of the asset times the awareness of the asset divided by the ease of virtuous use, meaning how easy can people use it the way you want it to, and the security. But then you can break that down further, and you can say, okay, what is utility exactly? And utility, I think, comes down to the market need and the times the perceived market need, because there's a difference between the market having a need and people perceiving that there's a need. And then that's you take that divided by the competition. Now, there's also a difference between the perceived market need and the awareness of your product, right? And somewhere in there, legitimacy lies, that people perceive the need for this product, and they're also aware that your product fulfills the need. And I see where a lot of businesses, they fail, is they see a market need, they create the product, and they think the product is here. Let me just jump to the awareness. Look at my product, everybody. And they forget that people haven't perceived the need. And if people don't perceive the need, you're not going to sell it, even if people really, really need it, So I think all that kind of ties into what we're talking about with legitimacy here, where not only do people need to be aware of your product, but they need to perceive a need for your product. And the amount that they perceive may not be the same that you perceive. So
Yeah, I mean, I think everything you just said can be applied to fullstack.cash. Like, because I've been in this space, I know that it fulfills a need, but not many people perceive the need. And I mean, those that do are very happy customers. But you know, that's very insightful. And I did read the paper, and I really liked how you broke down the mathematical relationships between these concepts. I think the thing that needs to be done now, which is not something that can be done quickly, is to simply look at empirical evidence and see if it fits those mathematical models.
Yeah.
That was the one thing I was left like, this is a really great framework for thinking. At least like it's an excellent conversation. There's like good contours in which to have a conversation, but we just need to see if you know reality bears out those relationships. But I think it's an excellent framework.
I would be so I'm working on a paper called Projected Gross, which takes in those equations and hopefully allows a person to have an idea of what a projected gross of a product could be, taking in all those factors. And I would be happy to post both that one and the NFT paper and have people in the community look over it and tell me where I'm flat wrong. So, you know,
Yeah.
because that's where things get better.
Well, you know, you're doing great work because you're starting a conversation that you know, you're starting a conversation like NFTs are so new and exciting, and very few people like understand them to the level where they could even engage in that kind of a conversation. So but
Yeah.
that is I mean, you're getting down to like, I mean, that's an economics equation that you wrote. Like this
Yep.
is a business model. This is what drives value. If you want to make money in this space, this is the math equation. You know, like these are rubber meeting the road here. And so
Mhm.
it's good. It's just you're taking the next step in the evolution of this industry is to start to have these kinds of conversations.
Yeah, it's real easy for us as we develop a product, and part of it is I learned this coming from being a musician, right? I I make a bunch of music that I like, and I think everybody's going to like this music, and then you go out and you find out, well, not everybody does like this music. Not everybody perceives a need for that form of music. You know, we did stuff very much in the vein of classic rock, and it was really hard to crack a market who grew up listening to Zeppelin and the Beatles to listen to something new when they're like, well, I got Zeppelin and the Beatles.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. And so I think the same thing is in the crypto sphere. There are a lot of projects that start up and they go, well, I have this amazing product. Look at this amazing product, but they haven't done enough time to educate people on the need of why do we need that product, you know?
Yeah, you know, that's I like that because one of the things I used to have a girlfriend who managed a band, and it was this genre that like this is Americana, which I hadn't even heard that word until
Mhm.
I heard about the band. And over time I grew to really like their music, but at first I hated it, and it was just because I was like I had never been exposed to that genre. And and I think most people have that experience when they're introduced to a whole new genre of music like rap or something. It just sounds like noise, but after you listen to it for a while, you start to like, oh well, I like this one better than that one, and you start to like develop a preference. And I think cryptocurrency is the same thing. I mean, having constantly trying to onboard people. I live in a place
Yeah.
where like I am the only person in the cryptocurrency for like 100 miles,
Yeah.
and I'm starting to introduce, like I'm trying to meet people where they're at, where like okay, like we have this problem that usually involves like community or economics. Let's try and solve it with a token. So if I meet people where they're at, they're much more receptive. But then this magical thing happens once you get people to start taking those first couple steps, as they start to see like, oh yeah, the transaction fees are super high on Bitcoin. I don't want to buy a gift card with BTC or Ethereum because
Yep.
the transaction fees are so high. So, you know, even though, you know, maybe my buddy Steve told me not to get involved with Bitcoin Cash, maybe I'll give it a try just to, so I can, you know, achieve what I want to achieve. So you start to see the same, like, evolution in preferences.
Yeah, there's one of the biggest problems right now is onboarding, and I talked to David about this. Hi, David, by the way. I'm sure you're going to watch this later. And I think that a lot has been set in place to block people from getting on board, but once you get on board, it becomes pretty easy to use. So I think that may be one of the things we need to look at as solutions is how do we properly onboard people? And one of those solutions I've thought about is tokens. I think tokens are a great way to do this. Say you've got a company and they're a larger company and they say, all right, to their employees, we're going to pay you all in tokens and you can cash in your tokens every other week, just like a regular payday. Now, what's the difference here? We're going to pay you every day in tokens, meaning you can go cash out those tokens outside the company and the company will redeem those tokens for cash essentially. And what this does for the company is it helps them to begin onboarding their cash into a token economy, because as they encourage independent exchanges within their community and maybe the ice cream shop down the street, they say, hey, if you take these tokens for ice cream, we will pay you a premium rate for the exchange, right? And then eventually that token becomes starting to be used as a currency within that community and gains value within a market. And now that company can begin selling tokens on the market for Bitcoin Cash, Avalanche, anything else. And they've, in a way, backdoored an onboarding into the crypto community, essentially. You know, that would probably take a lot more ideas to flesh out, but it's these solutions we got to look at because there is a huge barrier for a lot of people. I tried to onboard a tech guy the other day and it took me like 3 hours to like educate him. And I'm like, all right, I really need you to sit down with you, but I'm on the phone. I'm like, all right, look at this place, look at this place. And that is a big barrier, but the ease of use once you get in it is incredibly high, incredibly high.
Something you said, I just want to share my screen real quick. So, I mean, everyone watching this video is aware of the token liquidity app for the Permissionless Software Foundation. And that app was inspired by this YouTube video called The Evolution of Money, which was presented by Galia Benartzi to the World Economic Forum. I think it was, or no, the Oslo Freedom Forum. That's what it was, the Oslo Freedom Forum. So I really recommend people take a moment to watch this video. It's been it's been so incredibly inspiring to me. The story she tells in that is the company's based in Israel, and they created this was like, when was this? This was like 2015, I think, when they ran this experiment. So it was pretty early in the
Years
Ethereum
ago
days.
in internet time.
Yeah. And so they created a token called the Lev token, or it's heart in the local language, and they gave it only to mothers. And in this culture, when women get shekels, their money, they're supposed to give it to the man. And so women don't have any shekels. They don't have any money. If they need money for something, they go ask their man for money. And so this really broke down those cultural barriers because it wasn't money. It was just some fun token thing. So the women, there was no issue with the women retaining these tokens. And then they started using them. Like if someone watched their kids, they would thank them in these tokens. If someone baked a birthday cake, they'd thank them in these tokens. And it unleashed this huge, thousands, if not millions of dollars of economic activity that otherwise would simply have not taken place. And because of cultural barriers, there just weren't shekels to go around for this type of thing.
Yeah.
And it created an economy within the local community, which was the community of mothers.
Yeah.
And so this was the inspiration behind the PSF token. Is we have our own token, which is within our community of the Permissionless Software Foundation. And I'm trying to do something similar here on the island in which I live, which we have, it's all gravel roads and houses. There's no economy of any kind. And but there is like one guy with an excavator, and there's like one architect, and there's one real estate agent. And so these people who are regularly employed, I've got a few of them to agree to start exchanging these little digital dollar tokens that I'm creating, called like island dollars. And so I'm hoping to replicate the same example that Gallia Benartzi gives here on the island locally. And so something you said like just really reminded me of that leverage of the power of local currencies and how they can unlock a lot of economic activity just within a community. And of course, the big question there is how do you bootstrap a token? And that I've done it once with the PSF token, and I'm getting ready to do it again with this island token.
Yeah, I think there's some of the functionality we're working with the wallet. There's some development we need to do. Like for instance, it would be nice for the token to generate its own QR code so that it's easily scannable by somebody else to verify that it's the token and not a forgery. Because you can create a token with any name or ticker, but it's the token ID that makes the difference. And that's just one more step for the end user to go, oh, now I got to go check this token ID. If some restaurant could literally, you open your wallet, you show the token, and it gets you discounts from the restaurant scans it and says, yep, that's the token. And then here's our discount tokens. I think that's something that's going to help that along. It's all a lot of little stuff, like you're talking the Mutable app. And another thing that you remind me of is I actually had a dream last night, a weird dream where this guy in the dream tells me loans aren't always about money. And loans aren't always money. And it made me think, kind of, when you said that, it's making me think, yes, you could essentially create tokens and say, I don't live by you, but say I did. And I could say, I need you to come help me. And I'm going to give you 3 hours of my time in tokens for you to redeem at some point in the future when you need me to help you.
Yeah. There's this quote that I got from a movie that was like, the best thing about granting a favor is the day you call it home, the rest. And here on the island, that's how we do it. We're very, tribal in that way, where we are benevolent. We go out of our way to help one another because nature's against all of us, and we have to call our favors home occasionally. And so it's always good to be to have more favors out than more of a credit than a debit. And so these tokens are just a way to quantify that concept that every human innately understands.
Yeah. I think that is a huge use case for these tokens, where it's all right. So say I send you 3 hours of tokens for my time, to get you to come do a favor. Well, if we're in an agreement with Daniel, you could then redeem those with Daniel, and now he's got tokens to spend for somebody else's time, So.
And something else you said about it, like it's lots of little things. Like one of the things that hit me the other day was, we really need like just a single page app that you can scan a QR code and it tells you the balance of that address. Like, so I make these plastic cards, and I was thinking like, man, that would be like a really smart step, just to scan the QR code, verify that the balance actually exists before you conduct a trade. And so this JSON RPC over IPFS, it's because of the flexibility of the networking involved, that like you don't have to think about, do I have Nginx set up correctly, and is my IP routing table correct, and what about did I register my domain name, and did I renew it? Like, you don't have to think about anything. All that stuff just goes away because the libp2p, which is built part of IPFS, it just figures that stuff out. The mesh network just automatically figures that stuff out. And so these just little, like, we should just make a little app that checks the balance of it. You can scan a QR code and check the balance, or verify that the token is legit. That's what I'm hoping to unlock with this JSON RPC over IPFS that Daniel and I are working on.
That's great.
Yeah, it'll make these sort of really small, valuable applications like much easier to build.
It's really the small things that make you frustrated too in applications, when you can have all this functionality and then you come to this one small thing and you realize that is the thorn in my side right there.
Yeah.
And I
yeah.
like your idea, your motto, everything that can be a plugin should be a plugin, you know? And so you can make that a plugin and you can make it customizable. If I was to do a souvenir type token, say they go visit museum, they get a souvenir token, and then they take it across the street to the restaurant scans that, and then it would be nice to say, all right, the minute you scan and verify that it's right, then the discount tokens are automatically sent to that address, you know.
Mhm.
And so that you're taking these steps out for people, making it incredibly usable, you know. But for you and I, we're like, all right, we got to scan that token, make sure that's in the wallet, and then we have to find their SLP address, and then we have to send these tokens from this wallet to that SLP address, you know.
Mhm.
There's a lot of steps for us, but if we can make that like literally a step or scan it,
Mhm.
tokens are in their wallet, they can use them for discount, you know, that creates incredible usability.
Yeah, Juan Bennett, the CEO of Protocol Labs, he calls it giving people superpowers. Is like we do the heavy lifting and we create the software that all of a sudden like gives a normal person like superpowers, but the inverse is that people really hate it when you take their superpowers away. And you know, so
Yeah.
you gotta think about, you know, the reliability of the superpower.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
Okay, well, I think we should probably wrap this up. It's been about an hour. It's been great just hashing ideas with you. And
Man.
Daniel, how you doing? Do you have anything to add before we wrap up?
I've been following the conversation, and also I wanted to add that maybe I don't know if you guys saw the announcement from Avalanche that they will have the ability to jump between the X chain and the C chain. So
Yeah,
maybe that will
Awesome.
be a way to connect the tokens that we are creating with the exchange, so the bridge can have a way to communicate with the application. That would be a cool feature to add.
yeah. I'm glad you brought that up. That is definitely on my radar. And yeah, one hike is this. We've got this token bridge that moves SLP tokens across to the Avalanche X chain. So you'll be able to go back and forth when we launch that, probably in about a month for the public. If anybody wants to do early beta testing, reach out to me. We can get you involved on that. But then, yeah, you're right. With this new feature so Avalanche has 3 chains. They have the X chain, the C chain, and the P chain. So this new ability that they just upgraded the network, you can move tokens from the X chain, which is where our bridge is going to be located, to the C chain, the contract chain, which is where they have a bridge between Avalanche and Ethereum. So we should be able to, in a few months, move a token from Bitcoin Cash to Avalanche X chain to Avalanche C chain to Ethereum and back again. And and so we're working on a command line wallet, and that's where these features are going to be developed first. Is shout out to Gary Nadir, who's working on the bridge and this command line wallet. So that's where we're going to sort of experiment with this first. Is have a command line wallet that works with the X chain, and then one of the first commands we're going to add is to move a token from the X chain to the C chain.
And for those who are watching that aren't aware what the X chain, P chain, and C chain are, the P chain is like their proof of stake chain, their nodes and validators. The X chain is their transaction chain, and the C chain is their smart contract chain. Just so if anybody's lost, help you out there a little bit.
Yeah, it's important to put that out there. There's a lot of that's a tough one to wrap your head around sometimes.
I was confused at first. That's why I just want to put that out to people. Also, before we go, do you want to talk about SLP and the creator about that, or you want to do that another time?
Yeah, let's do that another time. Things are still unfolding there. Daniel, did you have something else?
No, not right now.
Okay, I thought I heard you say something there.
David, we're sorry for talking tech stuff in the CommComm meeting. I know you're going to rip me about that later.
Well, we are a community of developers first, but we also want to make room for non-technical people. But I'm personally okay with the text.
Me too. Me too. It's fun. It's fun talking this stuff. So, and Daniel, it's fun to hear what you have to say as well.
Thank you, man.
Yeah.
I appreciate your input. It's really cool that the work you're doing.
Yeah, good stuff. I recommend that everybody download MetaMask if you don't have it already, the browser extension, and then go play with the Avex Cells video game, which Daniel had a hand in. So you'll have to get MetaMask talking to the Avalanche C chain. Did I get that right, Daniel?
Yeah, that's the correct information.
And Daniel, if you want to post in the Telegram where to find or like any instructions for people on how to get onto the C chain through MetaMask, and Chris, if you want to post the video from today, I can post all that in the description on Odyssey, because we do have an Odyssey channel up for those who want to watch it on Odyssey, and I should be getting this video up on Odyssey later today.
Thank you for your work on that. Yeah, and I'll do the same with the YouTube video. I'll add the links into the show notes in the comments.
Cool.
Cool.
All right, cheers, guys.